My girlfriend said, "I met someone who makes me feel alive." I replied, "Then enjoy your new life." Then I booked a flight home, changed the locks, packed her things into storage, blocked her number, and I just smiled because when karma hit, she found herself locked out and alone. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The Mexican sun felt like a blessing. It was a dry, clean heat that soaked into bones accustomed to the damp chill of home. I watched Chloe from my lounger. The way the light caught the sweat on her glass of margarita. The way she smiled, a real unforced smile as she tipped her face to the sky. This was the view I'd been picturing for 11 months. Ever since I'd clicked purchase on the surprise vacation package, draining a savings account I'd labeled Future Fund. "You're staring, Alex," she said without opening her eyes, just memorizing it. I said this. "You happy?" She cracked one eye open. "I'm always happy." I let the comment hang in the air between us, a fragile thing. She wasn't not always. The last 6 months at her marketing firm had been a grind and she brought the stress home like a heavy coat. She refused to take off. This trip was supposed to be the reset button, my gift to her, to us. "This place is incredible," I said, gesturing at the turquoise pool that seemed to spill into the endless blue of the ocean beyond. "Worth every penny of eating leftover pasta for a year," she sighed, a faint sound of irritation. "Don't ruin it by talking about money, Alex. It's not a good look." The comment stung, but I brushed it off. Creation stress. She'd unwind. I went back to watching the water, to the simple peace of the moment. That's when I noticed him. A guy maybe our age with the kind of sculpted sun-bronzed physique that looked like it was his full-time job. He was at the swim-up bar holding court with a couple of other guests, his laugh a little too loud, a little too performative. I didn't think much of him until he slid into the water and started swimming, not towards an empty spot, but directly towards us. "Well, hello there," he said, his voice a smooth baritone as he hoisted himself out of the water right next to K.H. Lowe's lounger. He flashed a perfect white smile at both of us, but his eyes were locked on her. "I couldn't help but notice you two from over there. You look new." Chloe, who usually met unsolicited attention with a polite but firm chill, surprised me. She smiled back. "Is it that obvious?" "The paleness gives it away," he laughed, not unkindly. "First day, I'm Leo, Chloe, and this is Alex." Leo gave me a nod that felt more like an inventory check than a greeting. "Alex, cool." He turned his attention back to Chloe as if I'd evaporated. "So first day you have to try the passion fruit mojitos at the Palapa bar. The ones here are swill." "We were just about to get another round," Chloe said, even though we weren't. She glanced at my half-finished beer. "Weren't we, Alex?" Before I could answer, Leo flagged down a waiter. "Free passion fruit mojitos, my man. Put it on my tab." He winked at K.H. Lowe. "Consider it a welcome gift," and that was it. The door was open. For the next hour, Leo held forth. He was a digital nomad. His portfolio diversified across crypto and e-commerce. He talked about surfing in Bali, skiing in Chiang and a full moon party in Thailand. That sounded more like a threat than a good time. Chloe was mesmerized. She hung on his every word, her laughter coming easier and more frequently than it had for me in months. I tried to interject once. "That sounds amazing, but it must get lonely. Always moving." Leo looked at me as if I'd spoken in a dead language. "Lonely, man. The world is full of people. You just have to be interesting enough for them to want to stick around." His eyes flicked back to Chloe. "It's about energy. Some people have a spark, you know, a thirst for life. Others, well, they're just content to watch." Chloe didn't defend me. She just took a long sip of her mojito. The heat was starting to feel oppressive. "I'm going to grab us some towels," I said, standing up. It was a feeble excuse, but I needed a minute. Neither of them really acknowledged me leaving. As I walked towards the cabana, I glanced back. Leo had leaned in closer, saying something to her in a low, intimate tone. I was too far to hear, but I saw K.H. Lowe's face perfectly. She was looking at him with a raw, hungry fascination I hadn't seen in her eyes for a long, long time. I stood at the towel station, the stack of clean white cotton in my hands, feeling like a ghost in my own life. The sun, the paradise, the woman I loved. It was all still there, but a crack had formed, and through it, I could see the whole perfect facade beginning to splinter. The rest of the day passed in a blur of forced smiles and a simmering silent dread in the pit of my stomach. Leo was a permanent fixture. He joined us for lunch, recommending dishes he insisted K.H. Lowe had to try. He commandeered the conversation, his stories growing more extravagant, his disdain for anything ordinary more pronounced. Every time I spoke, I felt K.H. Lowe's impatience like a physical pressure. My comments about my job as a project manager were safe. My plan to maybe get scuba certified was cute. Leo's tale of free diving with sharks was fearless. The comparisons were a constant low-grade hum. We should get tickets to that fire dancing show tonight. I suggested over dinner, trying to reclaim some semblance of our itinerary. Ugh, that's so touristy. Chloe groaned, pushing her ceviche around her plate. Leo said it's a total scam. He knows a private beach club, that's the real experience. Of course he does, I said, my voice flat. She shot me a look. Don't be like that. He's just showing us a good time. You could stand to be a little more spontaneous, you know. The word hung in the air between us. Spontaneous. It was the same word she'd used when she'd talked about wanting to quit her job and travel with no plan and no savings. I'd called it irresponsible. Leo would probably call it living. Later, back in our room, as she changed for this real experience, I tried to bridge the chasm. Chloe, this guy, he's a lot, don't you think? She was standing in front of the mirror, critically examining a new slinky black dress she'd packed. He's interesting, Alex, he's lived. You should try talking to him instead of just sitting there judging. I'm not judging. I planned this trip for us, for you. And now it feels like we have a third wheel. She spun around, her eyes flashing. No, you planned a trip for the version of me you're comfortable with. The one who comes home from a shitty job and watches Netflix with you until we fall asleep. Leo sees the version of me that wants more, the one that's allowed to want more. The accusation was so unfair it stole my breath. I've never stopped you from wanting anything, haven't you? She said, her voice dropping to a cold, quiet tone. You create this cage of stability. It's suffocating. She swept out of the room, leaving me standing there, the gilded cage of our 5-star resort feeling more like a prison cell. I didn't follow her to the beach club. I sat on our private balcony, the symphony of crickets and distant waves, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I knew with a cold, sinking certainty what was coming. It arrived around 2:00 a.m. I was still on the balcony, a single forgotten beer warm in my hand when the door slid open. She was back. She smelled of salt, smoke, and another man's cologne. She didn't look at me as she walked out, leaning against the railing and staring into the dark ocean. I can't do this anymore, Alex. The words were quiet, but they hit me with the force of a physical blow. Even expecting them, the finality was breathtaking. I said nothing. I just waited. My heart a dull, heavy drum in my chest. She turned to face me. And in the dim light, her expression wasn't sad or conflicted. It was resolved, almost smug. I met someone who makes me feel alive, she said, her voice gaining strength. And being with you, it feels like a slow death. This is over. I let the silence stretch. Let the ugly words hang in the humid air between us. I took a slow, deliberate breath. Okay, I said, my voice unnaturally calm. I understand, her brow furrowed slightly. This wasn't the script. Leo, I asked, the name tasting like ash. It doesn't matter, she said, a flicker of irritation in her eyes. What matters is I finally see clearly. You're a placeholder, a safe, boring placeholder for a real life. There it was. The core truth stripped of all its pretty lies. The future fund savings, the careful planning, the years of loyalty, it all boiled down to that. I was a placeholder. Okay, I repeated. I stood up, walked past her into the room, and went to the closet. I pulled out my suitcase and laid it on the bed. I started packing methodically, neatly, rolling my t-shirts, placing my shoes in a separate bag. I heard her footsteps behind me. She was standing in the doorway watching me, her arms crossed. The confusion on her face was morphing into anger. "That's it." She finally burst out. "You're not even going to fight for me. You're just packing." I zipped the suitcase closed with a definitive sound. I looked at her, really looked at her for the last time. The woman I thought I'd build a life with was gone, replaced by a stranger possessed by a thrilling, destructive fantasy. "You've made your choice," I said, my tone flat and final. "I respect it." The word respect wasn't an offering of grace. It was a weapon of dismissal. She stared at me, utterly flummoxed. Her grand, dramatic exit was being met with quiet, efficient agreement. I picked up my suitcase and my backpack. I walked towards the door. "Where are you going?" she demanded, her voice shrill. "Home, and what am I supposed to do that?" I said, pausing at the door is no longer my concern. I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I closed it with a soft, precise click. The hallway was silent and empty. My mind was strangely clear, a blank slate wiped clean of the noise and the pain. In the elevator, I opened my phone. I found the first available flight home, a red-eye leaving in 3 hours. I booked a one-way ticket, the cost a mere abstraction. Then I found her number in my contacts. I didn't scroll through our old photos or read our text threads. I simply pressed block. The confirmation message appeared on the screen just as the elevator doors slid open to the grand, deserted lobby. I walked through it. My suitcase, wheels clicking a steady rhythm on the marble floor, a ghost already fading from the scene of his own life. The flight home was a liminal space, a silent pressurized tube hurtling through the dark between two worlds. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I stared at the moving map on the screen in front of me, watching the little plane icons slowly leave the vibrant coast of Mexico and traverse the vast, dark emptiness of the Gulf. It felt symbolic. I was leaving the colorful, chaotic drama behind for something quieter, something darker, but also something entirely my own. I landed just after dawn. The air in the airport was cold, sterile, and familiar. It was a shock after the tropical humidity, a bracing slab of reality. I took an Uber home, the city waking up around me in grays and concrete tones. It felt more real, more honest than the resort's manufactured paradise had ever been. The key turned in the lock of my apartment. I pushed the door open and was met with a wall of silence. It was a heavy, expectant silence thick with the ghost of her presence. The throw pillows she'd meticulously arranged the specific brand of candle she loved on the coffee table. A jacket of hers slung over the back of a chair. For a moment, the weight of it all threatened to crush me. The memories, the plans, the sheer stupid waste of it all. Then I took a deep breath and I got to work. The first thing I did was call a 24-hour locksmith. While I waited, I started a list on my phone, the project manager and me taking over. It was a familiar, comforting process. Define the problem, break it down into tasks, execute, change locks in progress, remove her belongings. Separate finances, reclaim space. The locksmith arrived. A gruff, no-nonsense man who asked no questions. The sound of the drill biting into the door frame was violent. Final. When he handed me the 3 new silver keys, they felt cold and clean in my hand. Power objects. They meant control. Next, I went to the storage closet and pulled out every moving box I could find. I started in the bedroom, opening her side of the closet. The scent of her perfume, that expensive floral scent I'd saved for months to buy her, wafted it out, and for a second, it was like a physical blow. I stood there breathing it in, letting the pain wash over me. And then I exhaled and it passed. I started pulling dresses, blouses, shoes off their hangers and folding them into boxes. Not with anger, not with sadness, but with the detached efficiency of a warehouse worker. This was no longer her space. These were no longer her things. They were objects occupying my territory, and they needed to be removed. I didn't snoop. I didn't read old birthday cards or look at photos. I was an archaeologist carefully cataloging and boxing up a civilization that had gone extinct. It took most of the day. When I was done, a tower of cardboard boxes stood in the living room, a monument to a shared life that was now over. I rented a small storage unit online, a 10-minute drive away. I loaded the boxes into my car, made 3 trips, and stacked them neatly inside the sterile beige cube. I took a picture of the unit number and the lock I placed on it. Then I found her mother's number in my phone, a woman who had never thought I was good enough for her daughter, and sent a simple text. The remainder of K.H. Lowe's personal effects are in storage unit 47B at Secure Store on 4th. The access code is 1892. The unit is paid through the end of the month. After that, it's her responsibility. Do not contact me again. I blocked the number before any reply could come. The final, most crucial task was the lawyer. I found a family law firm with good reviews and scheduled a consultation for the following day. I walked in with a folder of our financial documents, joint bank account statements, the apartment lease, everything. The lawyer, a sharp, middle-aged woman named Miss Evans, listened without expression as I laid out the facts. We are not married. She has abandoned the shared residence and, according to her own statement, the relationship. I have removed her belongings to storage to mitigate any claim of tenancy. I want her legally and financially severed from my life as completely and quickly as possible. Miss Evans nodded, a faint hint of approval in her eyes. That's refreshingly clear. We can file a petition action for the joint account and draft a formal letter severing any tenancy at will she might have. We'll have her served. Perfect, I said. I took a week off work. I wasn't hiding. I was recalibrating. I bought new bed sheets, a different color she would have hated. I threw out the candle and the throw pillows. I rearranged the furniture. I painted one accent wall a deep navy blue. With every change, the apartment felt less like ours and more like mine. The silence, once oppressive, began to feel like peace. The emptiness felt like space, space to breathe, to think, to be just me. I didn't wonder what she was doing. I didn't picture her on a beach with Leo, living her real life. The part of my brain that was responsible for worrying about Chloe had been surgically removed. I was free. And while I was painting my wall and building a new life from the ashes of the old one, karma was taking its own course thousands of miles away. I didn't know it yet. I didn't need to. The first sign would come not as a feeling of Schott and Freude, but as a vibration in my pocket, a desperate, furious plea from a world that no longer had any claim to me. A week to the day after I'd left her in Mexico, my phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. It was an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, the notification popped up. I played it on speaker, the sound echoing in my newly minimalist apartment. What the hell, Alex, I'm back. The keys don't work. Where are all my things? Call me back, K.H. Lowe's voice was a jagged mix of confusion and fury. There was no hint of remorse, only entitlement violated. I deleted the voicemail and blocked the number. The silence returned, more profound than before. The next day, the flying monkeys were deployed. My phone lit up with a contact I hadn't heard from in months. Sarah, K.H. Lowe's best friend. I answered, curious to see the script. Sarah. Hey, Alex. Look, I know what Chloe did was shitty, but you can't just lock her out of her own home. She's got nowhere to go. That guy Leo screwed her over, took all her money, and just left her there. Me, voice even devoid of emotion. It's not her home anymore. Sarah, the lawyer's letter explains everything. Sarah, lawyer, are you serious? She made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Have a heart. She's devastated. Me. My heart is no longer her concern or yours. Goodbye, Sarah. I hung up and blocked her. The ease with which I did it was a revelation. Their drama was a fire, and I was no longer willing to be fuel. Then the text started a new number, but the voice was unmistakably Chloe's. The tone had shifted from anger to panic desperation. Text 1. Please, I'm so sorry. He was a monster. I was stupid. I see now what we had was real. Text 2. I'm staying at the Sunset Motel. It's disgusting. I have no money. My card is maxed out from the flight. Please just let me talk to you. Text 3. You were always my rock. Don't you remember all the good times? The way you used to look at me. I love you. I never stopped. I read them one after another, feeling nothing but a distant academic interest. It was like reading lines from a bad movie. The rock she had so readily discarded. The good times she had called a slow death. The love that had been conditional on me not being boring. Her words had lost all power. They were just ink on a screen. A few days of silence passed. Then another call from the new number. I felt a strange sense of closure knowing this was the final act. I swiped to answer and said nothing. Chloe. Her voice was thick with tears, then sharpened by the silence. I know you're there. Say something. How can you be so cold? After everything we had, you're just going to abandon me like this. You're a coward. I let her words hang in the digital space between us. I could hear her ragged breathing. Me. My tone was flat, calm, like I was reading a weather report. Are you done, Chloe? A stunned silence, then a whimper. I need you. Me. The storage unit is paid for until the end of the month. Any further communication should go through my lawyer. Do not contact me again. I ended the call. My finger hovered over the block button for a moment, then I pressed it. It was the final quiet click of a door closing forever. 2 months is a long time when you're dedicated to the quiet work of rebuilding. I'd moved out of the old apartment into a modern high-rise with a view of the city skyline. I'd thrown myself into work, not as an escape, but as a channel for my newfound focus. I'd been offered a lead project manager role. I'd started dating casually a woman from the yoga studio who laughed easily and never once called me safe. I was coming home from a late meeting. The cool night air a welcome relief. The underground parking garage was quiet, my footsteps echoing off the concrete. I was almost to my car when a figure detached itself from the shadows near the elevator. Alex. I stopped. It was Chloe. She looked faded. Her hair was lackluster. Her clothes looked slept in. And there was a frantic, hungry look in her eyes that I didn't recognize. Me. I didn't stop walking, just slowed my pace. There's nothing to talk about, Chloe. She hurried to catch up, falling into step beside me. We need to talk properly. I reached my car and pressed the fob. The lights flashed. No, we don't, Chloe. I get it. You're hurt. I'm hurt too. He destroyed me, but we can get through this together. We can be stronger. Her voice was pleading, but with an undercurrent of demand, as if she were explaining a simple concept to a stubborn child. I stopped, my hand on the car door, and turned to look at her. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. I felt a vast, immeasurable distance. This was the final encounter, and I knew exactly what to say. Me, you misunderstood. My voice was quiet but carried perfectly in the sterile garage. This isn't about hurt. This is about irrelevance. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. Me. The man you knew, the one you called safe, he disappeared in Mexico. The man I am now doesn't have space for you in his life, his thoughts, or his peace. What you went through with Leo, that's your karma to live with, not my problem to solve. I saw the last flicker of hope in her eyes die, replaced by a hollow, terrible understanding. She had lost. Not just the relationship, but the war. She had no power here. Me, we are strangers. Let's stay that way. I opened the car door, slid inside, and closed it. The sound was a soft, final thud. Through the windshield, I saw her standing there, small and broken in the vast, empty garage. I started the engine, shifted into reverse, and drove away. I didn't look in the rearview mirror, not once. As I merged into the flow of city traffic, the bright lights painting the interior of my car, I felt it. Not satisfaction, not victory, peace. A deep, unshakable peace. She hadn't just lost a boyfriend. She had lost access to the man I was always meant to become. A man of quiet strength, of unassailable boundaries, a man who understood his own worth. And that man, the one she would never know, was finally and completely free. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.